I came home from a week-long business trip to find my bedroom converted into a nursery. Not discussed, not planned, just done like I was a tenant who'd forgotten to pay rent. And they were reclaiming the space. Jessica met me at the front door, with that smile she used when she wanted something, the one that never quite reached her eyes. "Mom, welcome home. We have the most amazing surprise for you." I set my suitcase down in the hallway and looked around. The house felt different. Lighter somehow, like pieces of me had been erased while I was gone. "What kind of surprise?" "Come upstairs." She practically bounced as she led me up the stairs I climbed every night for 15 years. Roberto was waiting at the top, leaning against the doorframe of what used to be my bedroom. "Ta-da!" Jessica threw open the door. Yellow walls, a white crib where my bed used to be, a changing table positioned exactly where my dresser had sat for over a decade. The room smelled like fresh paint and new carpet, but underneath it all was the faint scent of my lavender hand lotion, like a ghost refusing to leave. "Where's my bed?" I asked quietly. "Oh, we moved it to the guest room downstairs. You'll love it there. So much quieter." Jessica's voice had that rehearsed quality, like she practiced this conversation in the mirror. I walked into the room that used to be mine. My morning routine was mapped out in this space. I knew exactly how many steps it took to get from the bed to the bathroom where the light switch was in the dark, which floorboard creaked near the closet. Now it was foreign territory. "We got the crib at that boutique place downtown," Roberto said, patting the white rail. "Real solid wood, cost a fortune." But Jessica insisted. "Thank you for being here. If this story touched you, please subscribe and don't forget to leave a comment. I read every one of them, and it's how I see just how far our stories are reaching." "Where are my things?" I opened the closet door. Empty hangers dangled like question marks. "We moved everything to the guest room closet. Well, most of it. Some of the older stuff we packed up and put in the garage, to make room." Jessica was still smiling, but her hands were fidgeting with her wedding ring. "The guest room, the room with the pull-out sofa, and the closet that barely fit a week's worth of clothes. The room that faced the street instead of the garden I'd spent years cultivating. The room that wasn't mine. You could have asked me first. Mom, you were gone and we needed to get started on the nursery. The baby's coming in 3 months. We thought you'd be excited to help, that word again. The same word Jessica used when she moved back home after her divorce. The same word she used when Roberto lost his job and they couldn't afford their apartment. The same word that somehow always meant I was supposed to give up something I valued. "We thought about calling you," Roberto added. "But you sounded so stressed on the phone about your sister's surgery. We didn't want to bother you with details. Like asking permission to take over my bedroom was a minor detail. Like 15 years of my life sleeping in that room. Waking up to the morning light through those specific windows was something I wouldn't miss." I walked downstairs to see my new accommodations. The guest room looked exactly like what it was an afterthought. My queen-size bed was crammed against one wall, leaving barely enough space to walk around it. The small closet was stuffed with my clothes, everything wrinkled and pushed together, like they'd just thrown handfuls in without looking. "We put your jewelry box on the dresser in here," Jessica called from the doorway, "and your books are in those boxes by the window." Boxes? My books were in cardboard boxes, like I was moving out instead of being moved around. I sat on the edge of my displaced bed and stared at the unfamiliar view through the window. Instead of my garden, I could see the neighbor's driveway and their overflowing garbage cans. "This is temporary, right?" I finally asked. Jessica and Roberto exchanged a look. One of those married couple communications that happens without words. "Well, we'll see how it goes," Jessica said. "The baby will need that room for a long time. And really, this room gets better light in the mornings." No, it didn't. I'd lived in this house for 15 years. I knew every corner of it, every shadow, every beam of sunlight that came through every window at every hour of the day. This room was darker, colder, and had the constant hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen next door. "What about my things in the garage?" "Just some old photo albums and stuff we weren't sure you still wanted. We can go through it together later," Jessica said, already backing out of the room. "You must be tired from traveling. We'll let you get settled." They left me alone with my confusion and cardboard boxes. I opened the first one and found my college yearbooks mixed in with kitchen towels I didn't remember packing. The second box held my photo albums, but also my good winter coat and the quilt my mother had made me. Things that weren't old or unwanted. Things they decided I didn't need immediate access to. That night, I unpacked my suitcase in my new room. Every movement felt wrong. I kept reaching for light switches that weren't there, expecting space that had been taken away. When I opened the closet to hang up my work clothes, everything tumbled out because they'd stuffed it so full. I sat on the floor picking up my scattered belongings, and realized this wasn't the first time I'd been moved to make room for Jessica's life when she was 16 and wanted to paint her room black. I gave up my home office and moved my desk to the kitchen table. When she needed money for college, I took out a second mortgage on this house. When her marriage fell apart, I welcomed her and Roberto with open arms. But this felt different. This felt permanent. I lay in the unfamiliar bed listening to unfamiliar sounds. The street noise was louder down here, car doors slamming, late-night conversations from the sidewalk. The house settling in ways I'd never noticed from upstairs. Around midnight, I heard Jessica and Roberto talking in my old room directly above me. Their voices carried through the heating vents. She took it better than I thought she would. Jessica was saying, "Your mom's always been easygoing. Remember when we first moved in? She just rolled with it, I know. But I was worried she'd make a big deal about the bedroom. It's not like she has anywhere else to go. And she's getting older. It's probably better for her to be on the ground floor anyway, safer. Plus, we're doing her a favor. This room is closer to the bathroom." I stared at the ceiling in the dark. It's not like she has anywhere else to go. That's what they thought. That I was stuck, that I had no choices. That I would just accept whatever corner of my own house they decided to give me. And they were framing it as doing me a favor. I got up and walked to the kitchen. The house was quiet except for the hum of appliances and the settling sounds that happen when everyone else is asleep. I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, where I used to work when Jessica took over my office years ago. The pile of mail was still sitting where I'd left it a week ago. Bills, mostly, credit card offers, and underneath it all, something I'd forgotten about. A letter from my insurance company about the house. I opened it and spread the papers across the table. Property deed, mortgage statements, insurance policies. All in my name, only my name. I'd bought this house in 1998 with money from my divorce settlement and a job that paid well enough to handle the payments alone. Jessica was 12 then, and I wanted her to have stability. Her own room, a yard, a place that felt permanent after years of apartment living, 15 years of mortgage payments, all mine. I'd never added Jessica's name to anything because she was a child when I bought it, and later because she was irresponsible with money. Even when she moved back in with Roberto, we'd never discussed changing ownership. I'd assumed it was temporary. But, sitting there at 1 a.m., displaced from my own bedroom, I realized that temporary had become permanent without anyone asking my permission. I spread out all the documents on the kitchen table and stared at them: property value assessments, tax records, insurance papers. Every single piece of paper had my name on it. Dorothy Chen, not Jessica Chen Martinez, not Roberto Martinez, just me. The house was worth more than I thought. A lot more. The neighborhood had gotten trendy while I wasn't paying attention. Young families were moving in, fixing up the old houses, driving up property values. I could sell it. The thought came out of nowhere and hit me like cold water. I could sell this house. I could take the money and buy something smaller. Something that was just mine. A place where no one could move me around like furniture. I looked around the kitchen. This kitchen, where I'd made Jessica school lunches for 6 years, where I'd taught her to bake cookies, where Roberto and I had shared late-night conversations when he first moved in and was trying to win me over. But it was also the kitchen where they planned my bedroom takeover without consulting me, where they decided what parts of my life were important enough to keep and what could be boxed up and stored in the garage. I gathered up all the papers and took them back to my displaced bedroom. I lay in the dark thinking about Jessica's words. It's not like she has anywhere else to go. She was wrong about that. I had choices. I'd just forgotten I had them. The next morning, I woke up confused. For a split second, I expected to see my garden through the window. But instead there was Mrs. Patterson's garbage can and her rusty sedan. The disorientation hit me fresh, like forgetting about a death and remembering it all over again. Jessica was already in the kitchen when I came out, making coffee in the machine I bought her for Christmas. She was wearing one of my bathrobes. The good one, silk, that I kept for special occasions. Morning, Mom, sleep okay? Fine. I poured myself coffee from the pot she'd made. It was weaker than I liked it. We thought we'd go through those boxes in the garage today. Get you properly settled. She was using her helpful voice, the same tone she used with elderly customers at the insurance office, where she worked. I nodded. But something twisted in my stomach. I'd been thinking about those boxes since yesterday. What exactly had they? Decided I didn't need after breakfast. Jessica led me to the garage. Roberto was already out there, organizing tools on the workbench I'd had installed when I first bought the house. My tools were nowhere to be seen. Here we go, Jessica said, gesturing to a corner where 6 cardboard boxes sat stacked. We tried to keep like things together. I opened the first box. Photo albums, like she'd said, but also my jewelry box. The good one with the velvet interior. The one that had sat on my dresser for 15 years. Inside were my mother's earrings, my grandmother's wedding ring, and the pearl necklace David had given me for our 10th anniversary. Before everything went wrong. Why is this out here? Oh. We put a smaller jewelry box on the dresser in your room. This one was too big for the space. Jessica was folding and refolding a dish towel, not meeting my eyes. The smaller jewelry box held my everyday earrings and a few cheap bracelets, the valuable pieces. The ones with history and meaning had been deemed too big for my new life. The second box held my winter coats. All of them. It's June, Roberto said when he saw me looking. Figured you wouldn't need these for months. But where was I supposed to put them when winter came? The tiny closet in my new room was already stuffed. The third box was books, not just any books, my college literature textbooks, the poetry collections I'd gathered over decades, the cookbook my sister had written before she died, books I'd referenced, revisited, treasured. There wasn't room on the shelf in your room for all of these, Jessica explained. We kept the ones that looked important. I wanted to ask who had decided what looked important, but I was afraid of the answer. The fourth box contained my good dishes, the china set I'd inherited from my mother. 12 place settings with serving platters and a gravy boat. I'd used them every Christmas, every Easter, every time something felt special enough to warrant the good dishes. The cabinet space in the kitchen is pretty tight with all of us living here, Roberto said. But don't worry, they're safe out here, safe? In a garage where the temperature swung from freezing to sweltering, where humidity and dust and time would gradually destroy the delicate glazing my mother had cared for so carefully. The fifth box held my winter sweaters, handwear upon by my mother before arthritis made it too painful for her to continue. Each one had taken her months to complete. Each one had been given with love and worn with gratitude. The last box was the worst. Inside were photographs I'd had framed and displayed throughout the house. Pictures of Jessica's childhood, photos from family vacations, the portrait we'd had taken the Christmas after her father left, just the two of us, smiling despite everything falling apart. We were decorating a bit, Jessica said when she saw me holding the photo. Going for a more modern look. But all your memories are safe here, safe in boxes, out of sight. Like I was being erased one frame at a time. I spent the morning going through everything, piece by piece with each item. I felt the same disorientation I'd experienced waking up in the wrong room. These weren't old things or unnecessary things. These were the artifacts of my life, the objects that told the story of who I was. They'd left me the basics, everyday clothes, paperback novels, the cheap jewelry, the dishes I used for ordinary meals, everything that marked me as someone with history, with taste, with connections to family and memory had been deemed expendable. We can bring some of this stuff back inside, Jessica said, noticing my expression. Once we figure out the space better. But we both knew that wasn't going to happen. The nursery was permanent. My displacement was permanent. These boxes were my new reality. That afternoon, Jessica went to her doctor's appointment and Roberto disappeared to job hunt. I sat in my new room, surrounded by the few possessions they deemed suitable for my reduced circumstances, and made a list. I started with the house documents I'd found the night before. Property deed, tax records, insurance papers, all in my name. Then I wrote down everything I could remember about the mortgage, the original amount, the years I'd been paying, the approximate balance. Next, I made a list of everything in those garage boxes, not just the items, but their value. The china set was worth at least $3,000. My mother's jewelry, maybe $5,000. The first edition books I collected over the years. I wasn't sure, but some were probably valuable. Added up numbers in my head. The house value, minus the remaining mortgage, my retirement accounts, my savings. The life insurance policy I'd been paying into for 20 years. I was not poor. I was not helpless. I was not stuck. I was a woman with assets who had been maneuvered into living like a dependent in her own home. That evening, while Jessica and Roberto watched television in the living room, I called my sister Helen. We hadn't talked in months, not since Jessica moved back in and I'd gotten too busy managing everyone else's life to maintain my own relationships. Dorothy, is everything okay? You sound strange. I told her everything. The nursery, the boxes, the conversation I'd overheard. Helen listened without interrupting, which was unusual for her. Jesus, Dorothy, when did you become a tenant in your own house? I don't know. It happened gradually. First it was temporary. Then it was helpful. Then it was just normal. What are you going to do? That was the question. What was I going to do? I'm thinking about selling the house. Helen was quiet for a long moment. And going where? I've been looking online at some of those senior communities, not the nursing home kind, the independent living ones. They have apartments, activities, people my age who aren't treating me like I'm already dead. Dorothy, that's brilliant. You should have done this years ago. But Jessica's pregnant. And Roberto still doesn't have steady work. Dorothy, listen to me. You spent 30 years putting Jessica's needs before your own. You put her through college, you supported her through her divorce. You welcomed her husband into your home when they couldn't afford their own place. You've done enough. After I hung up, I sat in my small room looking at the list I'd made. All those numbers, all that value, all that power I'd forgotten I had. I opened my laptop and started searching for senior living communities within 50 miles of my job. I had 2 more years before retirement, but I could commute if I found the right place. The first community I looked at had apartments with full kitchens and balconies overlooking a lake. The residents were playing tennis and swimming and gathering in the library for book clubs. They looked happy. They looked like they were living their own lives instead of being managed by their children. The second community had a waiting list, but the apartments were spacious and modern. They offered services if you needed them, but expected independence. The marketing materials showed people my age traveling, taking classes, pursuing hobbies. I bookmarked both websites and kept searching. By midnight, I had a list of 12 communities to visit. I had information about selling houses quickly in hot markets. I had the phone number for my financial advisor, who I planned to call first thing in the morning. I fell asleep planning my escape from my own life. I called in sick to work the next morning. I hadn't taken a sick day in 3 years, but I needed time to think without Jessica and Roberto watching my every move. They left together around 8:30. Jessica to her insurance office and Roberto to another job interview. That probably wouldn't lead anywhere. The house felt different when it was just mine. Quieter, but also more honest without them there, performing their version of helpful concern. I could see things clearly. I made strong coffee, the way I liked it, and spread all my financial documents across the kitchen table. The morning light coming through the window showed dust on surfaces that used to be spotless. When had I stopped taking care of my own home? The property deed was dated March 15, 1998. I remember that day. Jessica was 12, still reeling from her father's departure 6 months earlier. I'd signed the papers in a lawyer's office downtown while she sat in the waiting room doing homework. The house cost $180,000 then. I'd put down $40,000 from my divorce settlement and taken out a 30-year mortgage for the rest. Now the house was worth $485,000 according to the latest tax assessment. The neighborhood had transformed while I wasn't paying attention. Young professionals were buying out the old houses, renovating them, turning them into showcases. My house, with its original hardwood floors and outdated kitchen, was exactly what they wanted. I still owed $43,000 on the mortgage. 15 years of payments had whittled down the balance to almost nothing. If I sold for anything close to the assessed value, I'd walk away with over $400,000, plus my retirement accounts, plus my savings. I wasn't poor. I wasn't dependent. I was a woman of means who had been convinced to live like a charity case. The phone rang. Jessica's name on the caller ID. Hi, Mom. Just checking on you. Are you feeling better? Much better. Thank you. Good. I was thinking we could look at some of those baby things online tonight. Start making a registry, for the shower. The baby shower. Another event I was expected to plan and pay for while being grateful for the privilege. We'll see. I might be tired tonight. Oh, okay. Well, I'll pick up dinner on the way home. That Chinese place you like. She hung up before I could say I was perfectly capable of making my own dinner. Or that the Chinese place she meant was a cheap buffet, not the good restaurant I actually preferred. I went back to my documents. My financial advisor's last statement showed my 401k had grown to $340,000. My savings account had $58,000. The life insurance policy I'd been paying into for 20 years had a cash value of $35,000. I did the math. House sale proceeds, retirement accounts, savings, insurance, close to $900,000 total. More than enough to buy a nice apartment in one of those senior communities and live comfortably for the rest of my life. But I needed to be sure about my options. Before I made any moves, I called Meridian Oaks, the first community on my list. The woman who answered sounded my age, friendly but professional. We have a beautiful 2-bedroom available right now, she said after I explained I was interested in touring. It has a lake view and comes with all appliances. The monthly fee includes utilities, cable, internet, and access to all our amenities. What's the monthly fee? $2,800 for the 2-bedroom. That includes 1 meal per day in our dining room, weekly housekeeping, and all maintenance. Most of our residents find it very reasonable compared to maintaining a house. $2,800 a month. With my retirement income and Social Security, I could afford that easily. And no lawn to mow, no gutters to clean, no furnace to repair. Could I schedule a tour? Of course. How about tomorrow at 10? I wrote it down in my calendar. The first concrete step toward my new life. Next I called Harbor Point, the community with the waiting list. Their fee was higher, $3,000 to $100, but they had a full spa, an indoor pool, and organized trips to theater and museums. The waiting list was 6 months for a Lakeview unit, but they had garden view apartments available immediately. By lunchtime, I had tours scheduled for different communities. Over the next 2 weeks, I told each of them I was looking to move within 60 days. That afternoon, I called my financial advisor, Jim Crawford. I'd been working with him for 8 years, but we'd never talked about major life changes. Dorothy, good to hear from you. What can I do for you? I'm thinking about selling my house and moving to a senior community. I want to understand my financial position. Interesting. Let me pull up your accounts. I heard him typing, okay? I'm looking at everything, your 401k, your savings, the life insurance. Plus I have the approximate value of your house from when we did your net worth calculation last year. What do you think? Can I afford it? Dorothy, you can more than afford it. Based on these numbers, you could probably afford the most expensive place in town. You've been very conservative with your spending and very consistent with your saving. You're in excellent financial shape. Really. In fact, I'd say you've been almost too conservative. You could have been living more comfortably all these years. After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the numbers I'd written down. All these years, I've lived carefully, worried about money, postponed things I wanted because I thought I couldn't afford them. Meanwhile, Jessica and Roberto lived in my house rent-free, using my utilities, eating food I bought, treating me like I was the one who should be grateful. I heard Roberto's truck in the driveway around 3. He came in through the kitchen, nodded at me, and headed straight for the refrigerator. Any luck with the job today? I asked. Nah. Same old story. They want someone younger. He pulled out a beer and twisted off the cap. Mind if I ask what all this paperwork is? He was looking at the documents spread across the table. I gathered them up calmly, just reviewing my finances, making sure everything's in order, planning for the future. Smart. Especially with the baby coming. He said it like my future was automatically tied to their baby. Like my money, my planning, my security was naturally part of their family equation, something like that. That evening, Jessica came home with bags of Chinese food from the buffet place. She unpacked containers of sweet and sour pork, fried rice, and egg rolls that had been sitting under heat lamps along. This was easier than cooking, she said, setting up paper plates. I'm so tired these days. We ate in the living room, watching a reality show about people buying houses. The young couples on TV were picky, demanding, certain they deserved exactly what they wanted. They rejected houses for minor flaws, held out for perfect kitchens and master suites and 3-car garages. Look at them, Jessica said during a commercial. So entitled. They have no idea how hard it is to actually afford a house. I looked at her sideways. She was sitting in a house she'd never made a payment on, criticizing people for wanting what she'd been given for free. When I bought this house, I looked at 12 different places before I found the right one. I said, yeah, but the market was different then. Houses were cheaper. It's so much harder now. True. But you and Roberto don't have to worry about that. You have a place to live for now. But what happens when the baby gets older? We'll need more space eventually. I almost laughed. More space in a house where they'd already claimed the master bedroom and were hinting about future expansions after they went to bed. I sat in my small room and made another list. This one was different. It was everything I'd given up, compromised on, or postponed since Jessica and Roberto had moved in. I'd stopped having friends over because the house was always messy, and Roberto was usually sprawled on the couch in his underwear. I quit my book club because the meetings were on Thursday evenings, and Jessica needed help with grocery shopping. I'd canceled my subscription to the community theater because it seemed frivolous. When we were saving money for the baby, I'd been living smaller and smaller, making myself less and less, so they could expand into every corner of my life. I opened my laptop and started researching real estate agents. I wanted someone who specialized in quick sales, someone who could handle the paperwork while I was at work, someone who wouldn't ask too many questions about why I was in a hurry. The first agent I looked at had sold 12 houses in my neighborhood in the past year. Her average time on the market was 18 days. Her clients gave her 5-star reviews for communication and efficiency. I bookmarked her website and kept looking. By midnight, I had a list of 3 real estate agents to call for senior communities to visit and a timeline that would have me moved out before Jessica's baby was born. I wasn't just planning anymore. I was preparing to act. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm and lay in bed listening to the sounds of my house. The coffee maker Jessica had programmed the night before, Roberto's shower running too long, their muffled conversation about what to wear, what to eat, whose turn it was to take out the trash. They were living their lives in my space, making their plans with my resources, building their future on my foundation. And they expected me to be grateful for whatever corner they decided to leave me. Not anymore. I got dressed carefully, choosing clothes that made me feel confident rather than comfortable. I was going to tour my first senior community in 2 hours, and I wanted to feel like someone making a choice, not someone running away. When I came out for coffee, Jessica was eating cereal at the counter. "You look nice, Mom. Going somewhere special? Just some errands. Want me to come with you?" "I don't have any appointments until this afternoon." "No. Thank you, I can manage." She looked hurt. But I didn't care. I'd spent years including her in every decision, asking her opinion on everything from what groceries to buy to what color to paint the bathroom. Now I was going to practice making choices alone. I was done being managed. I was ready to manage my own life. Meridian Oaks was nothing like I'd expected. The marketing photos on their website had looked generic, like every other retirement community advertisement. But walking through the front doors felt like entering a luxury hotel. The lobby had marble floors, comfortable seating areas, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake. The woman who greeted me was about my age, dressed professionally but not severely. "You must be Dorothy. I'm Patricia Wells, the community director." She didn't call me dear or speak slowly like I might not understand. She treated me like an adult making an adult decision. "Let's start with the apartment," she said, leading me to the elevator. "I think you'll love the light in this unit." The 2-bedroom apartment was on the 3rd floor with a balcony facing the lake. The kitchen had granite counters and stainless steel appliances. The master bedroom was larger than my current room at home and had a walk-in closet. The 2nd bedroom could be an office or craft room or guest room, whatever I wanted it to be. The monthly fee includes 1 meal per day in our dining room, Patricia explained as we walked through. Most residents choose dinner, but some prefer lunch. You can change your selection anytime. What if I want to cook for myself? That's perfectly fine. The kitchen is fully functional. Many of our residents cook their own breakfast and lunch and join the community for dinner. It's social, but not required. We walked through the common areas. The library had comfortable chairs and large windows. The fitness center had equipment designed for older adults but wasn't patronizing about it. The dining room looked like a restaurant, not a cafeteria. What about the other residents? What are they like? We have retired teachers, nurses, business owners, artists. People who want to maintain their independence, but not the burden of homeownership. The average age is 72, but we have residents from 65 to 90 in the activity room. I watched a group playing cards while another group worked on a puzzle. They looked engaged, happy, like people living their own lives instead of being managed by their families. "Can I ask what prompted your interest in moving here?" Patricia asked as we sat in her office afterward. "I live with my daughter and her husband right now. It's not working out." She nodded without judgment. "That's one of our most common stories. Adult children mean well, but sometimes independence is better for everyone." "How quickly can I move in?" The apartment we looked at is available immediately. If you decide you want it, we'd need first month's fee, last month's fee, and a refundable security deposit. You could move in as soon as the paperwork is complete. I calculated quickly. About $8,500 to get started. I had that in my checking account. I'd like to put a hold on it while I think it over. Of course. I'll hold it for 48 hours. That should give you time to discuss it with your family. I almost told her I wouldn't be discussing it with anyone, but decided to keep that to myself. On the drive home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: excitement. The apartment was beautiful, the community was active, and I could afford it easily, more than afford it. I could live there comfortably and still have money left over for travel, hobbies, whatever I wanted. I stopped at a coffee shop I'd never been to and ordered an expensive drink. Sitting at a small table by the window, I made notes about everything I'd seen: the layout of the apartment, the monthly costs, the timeline for moving in. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about Jessica's needs or Roberto's job search or the baby's future. I was thinking about my own life. My phone buzzed, a text from Jessica. "How are your errands going? Need anything while I'm out?" I typed back, "All good, see you tonight." That afternoon, I called Rebecca Martinez, the real estate agent whose website I'd bookmarked. She answered on the second ring. "I'm interested in selling my house quickly," I told her. "How fast can it happen in the current market? Depends on the house and the price. Can you tell me the address and when you bought it?" I gave her the information. She was quiet for a moment, probably looking it up online. "Oh, this is a great neighborhood. Houses are selling fast here. If it's in good condition and priced right, I'd expect multiple offers within the first week." "What would you suggest for an asking price?" "I'd need to see it first. but based on recent sales in your area, probably around $475,000 to $485,000, maybe higher if it's been updated. My heart jumped. That was even more than the tax assessment. When could you come look at it? I have an opening tomorrow afternoon, say 2 o'clock? It'll take about an hour to walk through and discuss strategy. I hesitated. Jessica and Roberto would both be home by 3 o'clock, but I needed to know what I was working with. That works. But I prefer to keep this confidential for now, of course. Family situations can be complicated. I'll park down the street and we'll keep everything low-key. After I hung up, I sat in my car in the coffee shop parking lot and realized I was really doing this. I wasn't just thinking about it or planning it. I was taking concrete steps to change my life. That evening, Jessica was unusually chatty during dinner. She'd had a good day at work. Roberto had gotten a call back for a job interview, and she'd bought some baby clothes on sale. Look at this, she said, pulling tiny outfits out of shopping bags. I couldn't resist. Everything was half price. The clothes were cute, but expensive even at half price. Designer brands for a baby who would outgrow them in weeks. How much did you spend? I asked. Only $100, but look at the quality. This stuff would normally cost for $100 to $100 for baby clothes. More than I spent on clothes for myself in 6 months. But she said it like it was a bargain. Like she was being responsible. You're going to need to be more careful with money once the baby comes, I said. I know. But babies need good things. And we're not going to have another chance to shop for first-time parent stuff. Roberto nodded. Besides, we'll save money in other ways like living here instead of paying rent. There it was. The assumption that living in my house wasn't costing them anything. That my mortgage payment, my utility bills, my property taxes were just part of the landscape they were entitled to enjoy. Speaking of which, Jessica said, I was thinking about the nursery. We should probably get a dresser that matches a crib, something with a changing table on top. That sounds expensive. Well, yes, but it's an investment. Good furniture lasts. And we'll need it anyway. She was talking about spending hundreds more dollars on furniture for a room that used to be mine, using logic that made their expenses sound like wise financial planning. Have you thought about what happens when the baby gets older? I asked. This arrangement can't be permanent. Jessica and Roberto looked at each other. Another one of those wordless conversations. We're not in any hurry. Roberto said, this house is perfect for a family. Lots of space, good neighborhood, close to everything. But it's my house. Of course it is, Mom. We're not trying to take over. We're just grateful you're letting us stay here while we get on our feet. Get on their feet. Jessica had been back for 8 months. Roberto had been unemployed for 6 months. They weren't getting on their feet. They were settling in after they went to bed. I called Patricia at Meridian Oaks and left a voicemail. I'd like to reserve that apartment. I'll come in tomorrow with the paperwork. Then I called Rebecca Martinez and confirmed her 2 o'clock appointment. I was done talking about it. Time to start doing it. The next day dragged at work. I couldn't concentrate on spreadsheets and budget reports when my mind was on apartment leases and house listings. During my lunch break, I went to the bank and got a cashier's check for $8,500. The teller asked if I was making a major purchase. You could say that. I replied. At 1:45, I was home waiting for Rebecca. She arrived exactly on time, parking 3 houses down like she promised. She was younger than I'd expected, probably in her 30s, but she carried herself like someone who knew her business. Beautiful house, she said as I led her in. Great curb appeal. How long have you lived here? 15 years. I bought it after my divorce. We walked through room by room. She took notes and photos, commenting on the hardwood floors, the updated kitchen, the good bones of the house. The nursery is new, I said when we got to my former bedroom. It's nicely done, but nurseries don't have value. Most buyers will see it as a bedroom anyway. When we got to my current room, she asked, is this the master? No, this is the guest room. I'm staying here temporarily. She didn't ask why. Real estate agents probably saw all kinds of family situations. The house is in excellent condition. She said when we finished the tour, I'd recommend listing it for $185,000 in this market. I expect we'll get asking price or close to it. How long does the process take once we get an offer? Usually 30 to 45 days from accepted offer to closing. But it can be faster if the buyer is pre-approved and motivated. We sat at my kitchen table to go over the paperwork, listing agreement, disclosure forms, marketing strategy. I signed everything carefully, reading each page. When do you want to list it? I thought about the apartment at Meridian Oaks, the timeline I'd set for myself, the growing tension in the house. Monday, that's fast. Are you sure you're ready? I'm sure. After she left, I drove to Meridian Oaks and signed my lease agreement. Patricia walked me through the move-in process, the community guidelines, the The service is available. When would you like to take possession? She asked. As soon as possible. The apartment will be ready this weekend. You could move in Monday if you'd like. Monday? The same day my house would go on the market. That works perfectly. That evening, I sat in my small room surrounded by the few possessions they'd left me and planned my logistics. I'd need a moving company for the furniture. I'd need to arrange mail forwarding. I'd need to figure out what to take and what to leave behind. But first, I needed to tell Jessica and Roberto, not ask their permission, not negotiate with them, just inform them that their free ride was over. I'd spent 15 years making this house a home. Now I was going to make it someone else's problem. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd moved me out of my bedroom to make room for their baby. Now I was moving out of my house to make room for my life. I chose Sunday dinner to tell them. It seemed appropriate somehow, ending the week that had changed everything with the conversation that would change everything else. I'd spent Saturday moving through the house like I was seeing it for the last time, which in a way, I noticed things I'd stopped paying attention to. The way the afternoon light hit the kitchen counter, where I'd taught Jessica to make cookies when she was 8. The view from the living room window, where I'd watched her wait for the school bus every morning for 6 years. But I also noticed the dishes Jessica left in the sink, expecting me to clean them. The way Roberto had spread his job search materials across my dining room table without asking. The baby catalogs and pregnancy books that had taken over the coffee table. Evidence of a life being lived around me, not with me. I made pot roast for dinner, Jessica's favorite, though she probably didn't remember that anymore. I set the table with my everyday dishes, saving my mother's china for my new apartment. They came to dinner in a good mood. Roberto had gotten a second interview for a construction supervisor position. Jessica had felt the baby kick for the first time. They were full of plans and excitement about their future. I was thinking about the baby's room, Jessica said, cutting her meat. We should probably paint an accent wall. Something gender neutral but interesting. What color did you have in mind? I asked. Maybe that soft sage green. I saw it in a magazine. Very calming for babies. An accent wall. More changes to the room that used to be mine. And I was looking at cribs online, Roberto added. There's this convertible one that turns into a toddler bed. Later, more expensive upfront, but it'll last longer. They were planning years into the future. Toddler beds and accent walls and lasting furniture. Planning like this house was theirs to modify and live in indefinitely. I set down my fork and looked at both of them. I need to tell you something important. Jessica's face immediately shifted to concern. Are you okay? Is it your health? I'm fine. But I've made some decisions about my living situation. Roberto stopped chewing. Jessica put down her fork. I decided to sell the house. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. What do you mean, sell the house? Jessica's voice was smaller than usual. I mean, I'm putting it on the market. I've already signed with a real estate agent. The listing goes live tomorrow morning. Mom, this is very sudden. What's brought this on? I looked at her carefully. It's not sudden. I've been thinking about it since I came home and found my bedroom had been turned into a nursery. Without anyone asking me, we explained that. We thought you'd be excited to help with the baby. You thought I'd be excited to sleep in the guest room for the next 18 years while you raised your family in my house. Roberto found his voice. Dorothy, let's talk about this reasonably. You're upset about the room situation. We can work something out. What kind of something? Well, we could switch back. You could have your room, and we'll figure out somewhere else for the nursery. Where? Your room? They looked at each other. Of course not their room. They already established that the master bedroom was theirs by right. Maybe the basement, Jessica suggested. We could finish it properly, make it really nice. The basement. They wanted to put their baby in the basement rather than give up the master bedroom they'd claimed. Or we could look into adding on, Roberto said. Extend the back of the house, create more space for everyone, more space. Using my equity, my money, to make my house bigger so they could live in it more comfortably. I don't want to add on to the house. I don't want to negotiate room assignments. I want to sell the house and move somewhere that's mine. But Mom, this is your home. You've lived here for 15 years, and now I want to live somewhere else. Jessica's eyes were filling with tears. What about us? What about the baby? What about you? Where are we supposed to go? I looked at her steadily. Where were you planning to go before you moved back in here? That was different. I was getting divorced. Roberto didn't have a job. Roberto still doesn't have a job. He's trying. This interview could be the one, and if it's not, how long are you planning to live here? Another silence. They'd never actually planned to leave. I don't understand why you're doing this, Jessica said. We're family. Families help each other. I've been helping you for 8 months. I've helped you through your divorce, Through Roberto's unemployment, through your pregnancy. I gave you my bedroom and moved into the guest room. I put my belongings in boxes in the garage. I've paid all the utilities, the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance. What exactly have you done to help me? We keep you company. You'd be lonely here by yourself. I was lonely anyway. You live your lives around me, not with me. Roberto leaned forward. Look, Dorothy, if this is about money, we can start paying rent. Whatever's fair, with what money? When I get this job, you've been saying that for 6 months. So you're just going to kick us out, leave us homeless? I'm going to sell my house and move to a place where I can live my own life. What you do is up to you. Jessica was crying now. I can't believe you're being so selfish. I'm pregnant. We have nowhere to go. You have 8 months to figure it out. That's more notice than you gave me when you decided to take over my bedroom. That's not the same thing, isn't it? You made a decision that affected my living situation without consulting me. Now I'm making a decision that affects yours. Roberto stood up. This is crazy. You can't just throw your own daughter out on the street. I'm not throwing anyone anywhere. I'm selling my house. There's a difference. What if we refuse to leave? I looked at him calmly. Then the new owners will have you evicted. Your choice. Jessica was sobbing now. How can you do this to your own grandchild? My grandchild will be fine. Babies don't need specific houses. They need parents who are responsible enough to provide for them. We are responsible, really? You've been living rent-free for 8 months and haven't saved any money. You've been buying $200 worth of baby clothes while expecting me to pay for everything else. Roberto hasn't had a steady job in 6 months. How is that responsible? The truth hung in the air between us. They had no answer because there was no answer. Where are you going to live? Jessica asked finally. I've rented an apartment at a senior community. I'm moving out tomorrow. Tomorrow? You're leaving tomorrow? The house will show better without my furniture in it. That wasn't entirely true, but it sounded reasonable. I can't believe you planned all this behind our backs, Roberto said. I planned it the same way you planned taking over my bedroom. I made decisions about my own life and informed you afterward. Jessica pushed back from the table. I need to call Mom. She meant her grandmother, my ex-mother-in-law. The woman who had sided with David during our divorce and barely spoke to me afterward. Go ahead. But the house is still going on the market tomorrow. After Jessica left the room to make her phone call, Roberto sat back down. Dorothy, be reasonable. Jessica's emotional because she's pregnant. But this affects all of us, can't we? Work something out. What did you have in mind? We could pay rent, real rent, market rate. Where would you get the money? I'll take any job. Even if it's not what I want, construction, retail, whatever. You've had 8 months to take any job. I was being picky because I didn't have to worry about rent. But if I need to support US, I'll do whatever it takes. Roberto, you're 34 years old. Jessica is 32. You've been married for 2 years. When exactly were you planning to support yourselves? He didn't have an answer for that either. Jessica came back into the dining room, phone in her hand. I talked to Grandma Helen. She says you're having some kind of breakdown. That we should be patient with you. I'm not having a breakdown. I'm having a breakthrough. She wants to talk to you. I'm sure she does. But I'm not interested in discussing my decisions with someone who hasn't spoken to me in 3 years, except to criticize my parenting. Jessica sat down heavily. Mom, please. Think about what you're doing. We're your family. Yes, you are. And I love you. But love doesn't mean I have to sacrifice my entire life for your convenience. It's not convenience, it's necessity. We need help, then get help. But not from me, not anymore. I stood up and started clearing the dishes. The realtor will be here at 9 tomorrow to put up the for sale sign and install the lockbox. You'll need to keep the house clean and be prepared to leave for showings. I've left information about the process on the counter. What if we don't want to cooperate? Roberto asked. Then you'll make it harder to sell, which means you'll be living in uncertainty longer. Your choice. That night, I finished packing the essentials I'd need for my new apartment: clothes, toiletries, a few books, my mother's jewelry. Everything else could wait for the moving truck. I could hear Jessica crying in what used to be my bedroom. Roberto's voice, trying to comfort her, making plans, talking about calling his brother in Phoenix, discussing options they should have been discussing months ago. I felt a little sorry for them, but not sorry enough to change my mind. They were adults. They'd figure it out. I was done being their safety net. Tomorrow, I'd start being my own priority. I woke up Monday morning in my new apartment at Meridian Oaks for the first time in 8 months. I opened my eyes and saw exactly what I expected to see: the lake view through my bedroom window. The morning light I'd chosen, the space that was entirely mine. The moving truck had come early Sunday evening. After Jessica and Roberto had spent the day making phone calls and having hushed arguments in corners, They'd watch in stunned silence as the movers packed my furniture, my dishes, my books from the garage boxes. "You're really doing this," Jessica had said as they loaded my bed. "Yes, I really am. Now, sitting at my own kitchen table in my own apartment, drinking coffee made exactly the way I liked it, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Pieced up, my phone had been buzzing since 7 a.m. Text messages from Jessica. "Mom, please call me, we need to talk, the realtor is here, this is really happening. Roberto got the job, we can pay rent now." I deleted them without responding. At 9:30, Rebecca Martinez called. "Dorothy, great news. The house has been live for 2 hours and I've already gotten 4 calls to agents want to schedule showings for this afternoon." "That's wonderful. I have to ask, are your daughter and son-in-law going to cooperate with showings?" "They'll have to. They want the house to sell as much as I do now." That wasn't entirely true. "But it would be soon enough, perfect. I'll call you after the showings to let you know how they went." I spent my first day exploring my new community. The library had comfortable reading chairs and large windows overlooking the garden. The fitness center was busy but not crowded, filled with people my age who were taking care of themselves. I signed up for the book club, the walking group, and a watercolor class that started the following week. At lunch, I sat in the dining room with other residents. Margaret, a retired nurse, invited me to join her table. She introduced me to Helen, a former teacher, and Robert, who'd been a pharmacist. "How long have you lived here?" I asked Margaret. 3 years. "Best decision I ever made," my son thought. I was crazy for selling my house, but I loved not having to worry about maintenance and yard work. "Do you miss having your own house?" "Not for a minute, this is my own place, the difference is it's manageable." Robert nodded. "I lived with my daughter's family for 6 months after my wife died. Biggest mistake of my life. They meant well, but I felt like a guest in someone else's house. Here, I feel like myself again." I understood exactly what he meant. That afternoon, I unpacked my good dishes, the china set that had been banished to. The garage was now displayed in my own cabinet, ready to use whenever I wanted. I arranged my mother's jewelry in the bedroom dresser, easily accessible instead of hidden in boxes. I set up my books on the built-in shelves, organized by preference rather than squeezed into whatever space was left. Every object had a place. Every place was my choice. Rebecca called at 4 p.m. Fantastic news, both showings went well. The first couple loved everything about the house. They want to put in an offer tonight. Full asking price? Actually, they're offering for $195,000, $10,000 over asking. They don't want to lose it. I sat down in my new living room chair. $500,000. More money than I'd ever imagined having. "There's one small issue," Rebecca continued. "They want a quick closing, 30 days instead of 45. Is that possible on your end?" "Absolutely." "Great. I'll call you tonight once I have a formal offer in writing." After I hung up, I walked out onto my balcony and looked at the lake. 30 days from now, I'd have no mortgage, no property taxes, no maintenance worries. I'd have over $450,000 in cash plus all my retirement savings. I could travel, take classes, do whatever I wanted with my time. My phone rang. Jessica's name on the screen. I answered. "Mom, Roberto got the job. He starts next week. We can pay you rent, real rent." "Congratulations to Roberto. But the house is under contract." "What do you mean, under contract?" "I mean someone made an offer and I accepted it. The house is sold." Silence. "When?" "Today. They close in 30 days, Mom. You can't be serious. Roberto has a job now. We can make this work." "Jessica, I'm not interested in making it work. I'm interested in living my own life." "But where are we supposed to go in 30 days? That's not my problem to solve." "How can you say that? I'm your daughter." "Yes, you are. And you're also a grown woman with a husband and a baby on the way. You need to figure out how to take care of your own family. We don't have enough saved for first month, last month, and security deposit. Not with the baby coming. Then you should have thought of that before you spent $100 on baby clothes. That's not fair." "What's not fair is expecting me to subsidize your lifestyle indefinitely while treating me like a guest in my own house." Jessica started crying. "I never meant to treat you that way. But you did. And when I tried to talk about it, you dismissed my concerns and made plans to redecorate my old bedroom. I'm sorry. I really am. I know we made mistakes." "Yes, you did. And now you get to figure out how to fix them." "Mom, please, can't you at least help us with a deposit on an apartment?" I looked around my new living room. My furniture arranged the way I wanted it. My photos displayed where I could see them. My life organized around my preferences instead of everyone else's needs. No, I'm not giving you money for an apartment. I'm not co-signing a lease. I'm not solving this problem for you. Why are you being so cruel?" "I'm not being cruel. I'm being clear. You're 32 years old. Roberto is 34. You've had 8 months of free housing to save money and plan for your future. Instead, you got comfortable and assumed you'd never have to leave. We thought we were helping you by staying. You said you were lonely after the divorce. That was 12 years ago, Jessica. And I was lonely living with you two, just differently. Lonely, she was quiet for a long moment. What if something happens to the baby? What if we need help? Then you'll figure it out like every other parent does. You'll ask friends, family, look into programs, do whatever it takes. But you won't automatically assume I'll drop everything to rescue you. I don't understand how you can just cut us off like this. I'm not cutting you off. I'm letting you grow up. After we hung up, I made myself dinner in my own kitchen, salmon with vegetables, prepared exactly the way I liked it. I ate at my table, looking out at the lake, listening to classical music from my own stereo system. For the first time in years, I didn't have to consider anyone else's preferences. The music could be as loud or as soft as I wanted. I could eat dinner at 6 or 8 or 10 without explaining myself to anyone. The next morning, I walked around the lake with the community walking group, 5 women and 2 men, all talking about books they'd read, places they'd traveled, grandchildren they spoiled but didn't live with. You seem to have adjusted quickly, Margaret commented as we finished our loop. I was ready for a change. Did your family take it well? They're still adjusting, she nodded knowingly. My son didn't speak to me for 3 months after I moved here. He thought I was abandoning him. Now he calls every week and visits once a month. Much better relationship than when I was living with them. What changed? I stopped being his backup plan and started being his mother again. There's a difference. That afternoon, Patricia from the community office stopped by with a welcome basket and some paperwork. How are you settling in? Wonderfully. This was exactly the right choice. I'm glad to hear it. We have a few social events coming up if you're interested. Wine tasting Friday night, bridge tournament next week, and we're organizing a day trip to the art museum. I signed up for all 3. Can I ask what made you decide to move here? Patricia asked. You seem younger than most of our new residents. I was living with my daughter's family. It wasn't working out. The adult children situation, we see that a lot. They mean well. But it's hard to maintain your independence when you're living in someone else's rhythm, even when it's your own house, especially then. When it's your house but their rules, you end up feeling like a stranger in your own life. That was exactly what it had felt like over the next few weeks. I established routines that were entirely my own. Morning coffee on the balcony, afternoon walks around the lake, evening dinners with new friends who shared my interests instead of tolerating them. Jessica called less frequently when she did. The conversations were shorter and more focused on practical matters. They found an apartment 15 minutes from Roberto's new job. 2 bedrooms, rent they could afford with his salary. They were moving the weekend before my house closing. Are you happy now? She asked during one call. Yes, I am. I still don't understand why you had to sell the house. We could have worked something out. Jessica, we did work something out. This is it. But the house has been in our family for 15 years, and now it will be in someone else's family. That's how houses work. 3 weeks after I moved into Meridian Oaks, I attended my first community potluck dinner. I brought my mother's famous apple crisp, made in my own kitchen with ingredients I'd chosen. Robert, the retired pharmacist, sat next to me. You look different than when you first moved in. Different how? Happier, more relaxed, like you're comfortable in your own skin. I thought about that. I think I am, for the first time in a long time. It's amazing what happens when you stop living other people's lives and start living your own. The house closed on schedule. I walked through it one last time the morning of settlement, saying goodbye to the rooms where Jessica had grown up, where I built my life after my divorce, where I learned to be independent the first time. And then the first time, the new owners were there with their real estate agent, excited about their first home purchase. They were young, maybe late 20s, full of plans for the garden and ideas for decorating. We love what you've done with the place, the wife said. Especially the nursery. We're hoping to start a family soon. I smiled. The nursery that had displaced me from my own bedroom was perfect for people who actually needed it. Jessica and Roberto had moved out the previous weekend. Jessica had been cold during our goodbye, still hurt and angry about what she saw as my betrayal. Roberto had been more philosophical. I guess we needed to grow up sometime. He'd said as he loaded the last box into their moving truck. Double quotes. Yes, you did. Thanks for the push. That evening, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the sunset over the lake. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Jessica. Made it to the new apartment. It's smaller than I thought, but it's ours. Roberto starts work tomorrow. I typed back, I'm glad you're settled. A few minutes later, another text. I'm still mad at you, I know. But I understand why you did it. I'm glad. Maybe we can have lunch sometime at that place you like. Not the buffet. I smiled. I like that. 6 months later, Jessica and I did have lunch. At the good Chinese restaurant, not the buffet. She was showing, visibly pregnant, glowing with the excitement of someone building their own life instead of living in someone else's. The apartment is small, but we're making it work, she told me. Roberto's doing well at his job. We've actually managed to save some money. I'm proud of you. It's been hard. I didn't realize how much we were depending on you for everything. Now you know you can depend on yourselves. I want to apologize, she said suddenly, for taking over your bedroom, for treating you like you didn't matter, for expecting you to take care of us indefinitely. Thank you. That means a lot. Are you happy at Meridian Oaks? Very happy. I have friends, activities, my own space. I feel like myself again. I'm glad. I miss seeing you happy. As we said goodbye in the restaurant parking lot, Jessica hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. I love you too. Even if you did kick us out. I didn't kick you out. I let you fly. That night, I sat in my apartment looking through photo albums I'd rescued from the garage boxes. Pictures of Jessica as a baby, as a child, as a teenager. Pictures of the woman I'd been when I was her age, building a life, making mistakes, figuring things out. I'd spent so many years trying to save her from making mistakes that I'd forgotten the value of letting her make them. Now she was learning what I learned at her age, that independence isn't something someone gives you, it's something you take. I closed the album and looked around my apartment, my books on my shelves, my photos on my tables, my life arranged according to my preferences. Tomorrow I was starting a pottery class. Next week I was going on a day trip to wine country with the community group. Next month I was flying to Seattle to visit my sister Helen, who'd been proud of me for finally putting myself first. I thought selling the house was about getting away from Jessica and Roberto, but it wasn't about them at all. It was about getting back to me, the woman who'd gotten lost somewhere between being a good mother and being a good person, the woman who'd forgotten that love doesn't require self-sacrifice, the woman who'd learned, finally, that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your children is refuse to solve their problems. For them, I was 64 years old and I was finally living my own life. It had taken me longer than it should have, but I'd gotten there and it was exactly where I belonged.